Hello there, my name's Annette with Sunbeam Fabric Art. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm making my second project from a batch of fabric samples that I was gifted. I will leave some of my measurements in the description. What I'm making today is an approximately 2-gallon size of bag, which was a special request. My idea here is very simple. I'm taking 2 squares of the paint splatter fabric samples, and then I'm just going to be sewing other scraps around those center pieces. I tried to pair up 2 fabrics that were not very close. For example, I didn't want to have 2 star patterns right next to each other. Next, without any real rhyme or reason, I took 2 pieces of fabric that were contrasting. I put them right sides together, and then I sewed 2 lines through the fabric. In some cases, I sewed 4 lines through the fabric, but 2 lines in this case that are about a ½ inch apart from each other. And then I cut these sections apart in between my 2 stitch lines. For these 2 fabric samples, you can see I'm sewing 2 lines about 1/3 of the way over, and then I'm sewing 2 more lines on the opposite side of these little samples. Then when I cut those apart, you're going to see all the cuts I make. I have several little scrap pieces that I can add to my project. In this case, I decided to sew lines in a vertical orientation. And this is just to mix up these scrappy looks. I kept sewing 2 pieces together and making little scrappy pieces that I could add to my project. I dove into my tote that I keep bag supplies in. I knew I had a little bit of fabric that I was going to use for bag lining, and here it is. I cut my lining into the right size of rectangle that I wanted. Next, I placed one of those paint splatter squares right in the middle of the lining, and then I started sewing pieces around the outside of my paint splatter square. One thing I did to make it a little bit easier was I pre-stitched together some of the little scrappy pieces to make strips, and then I was able to sew the strip onto this bag. The only plan I started with was having the paint splatter square in the middle of the front and the back of this bag. Once I had all the lining covered, I trimmed all 4 sides of this bag. Next, I wanted to make a little casing for the short ends of this bag. I took a 2½ inch piece of white fabric and pressed it in half. First, I stitched this casing raw edges together to the inside of the bag. If you feel like adding some kind of embellishments to the outside of your bag, now is the time to do that. I did this to both of the short ends of the bag. I have a fancy red zipper that is meant to be seen. I put red thread in my machine and I'm simply going to top stitch this zipper to each end of my bag with a zigzag stitch. And I did swap out for my zipper foot. And here's a quick look at how that zipper looks after it is attached. These zippers are super cute and so easy to use. Now it's time to turn this bag wrong side out and decide on how high you want your zipper. I wanted mine pretty close to the top of the bag. I'm going to stitch one of the side seams. I'm making sure that my zipper pull is inside the bag. Next, I trimmed it back to about 1/4 inch. Then I went back over this seam with a blanket stitch. Before I sew that other side seam, I'm going to make sure my zipper is open, but that the zipper pull is still inside the bag, because when I turn this bag right side out, I need an opening for that. Once again, I am going to trim this seam back to 1/4 inch. Then I'm going to go over the seam again with that blanket stitch. Now I will use that open zipper to turn this bag right side out, and I have a little wooden tool that I use to poke out the corners of the bag. I hope you enjoyed this quick little tutorial. This is a free form bag. You do not have to plan anything. You can simply start sewing and enjoy the process. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I hope to see you back again real soon.